Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, talking today about gardens and follies. A builder's looks at wonderful gardens, how to think about it as a builder. Come join me today in the Build Show. So what does a builder do in talking about gardens? Well, one is just an appreciation and love of it. Maybe some things that you can incorporate into your work and into your jobs, right? Landscaping can make or break a project. And landscaping is something that, obviously takes a while to grow. You got mature plants. It is something you should consider and you should know about. For one, do you know what a folly is? Okay, a folly is kind of a costly sculptural ornamental building that has no purpose, has no function except visual pleasure. Okay, and so when we went to Chiswick House, okay, there is this wonderful kind of dome-shaped little temple with this Egyptian obelisk. Okay, right in this pond. It's beautiful, right? It's really wonderful. They've got these bridges that are over ponds, but a lot of it is, man-made. A lot of it is kind of captured and sculptured. And so one is that they are just taking their grounds and organizing them. Just like we organize and make beautiful house and build it, that's how they're building the garden. So in some cases, we should just be looking from the top down of kind of how these are put together. One of the Gertrude Jekyll gardens we went to, she's a very famous gardener in England. The main house is here, okay, but they have a kitchen garden here, they have the formal garden here, and they have the informal garden up here, right? And so this one is all just kind of random walking past and things like this. This one actually is very sculpted and very organized with this main area up here. Then there's a bowling alley here. There's actually a tennis court right here. I shared some of those pictures on Instagram. And then the back of this thing is organized with all of these different strong hedges. And so there is actually order and structure that goes from formal to kind of informal the way this is laid out. And so people visiting could go on long walks, right? No TV, no Instagram. What did you do? You entertain people by letting them wander on your grounds and kind of look at things. And so at Chiswick House, pretty much laid out the same way, that this dome-shaped house, which is after Palladio, has this very formal, garden in the back. That obelisk and little temple, right, is back here, and you kind of wander down these paths to go find it. So there's very formal gardens, okay? And then there are these English country gardens, which are overgrown. They have flowers competing on the paths, but you'll see little things like one of the paths of this garden had a stone walkway and another one had a grass walkway. If the house was here, right, going backwards this way, there was a brick wall right at the house, then there was a stone wall, then there was a hedge, okay? But each one was providing a layer of organization and a layer of informality that as you walked out, you moved into this kind of natural land, but as you go this way, it becomes more organized and more controlled. So realize that as we look at this, okay, that kind of organization can be very simple and very different. For instance, there's an organized column up one alley. There is a bench seat, right? There's just a statuary or a kind of little vase at the end of a little pathway. You don't have to build, a folly or a building to create that organization and create that sense of place, right? So as you're working on your properties, as you're working on your houses, remember the folly idea, remember this organization. Let's just say you have a 2-acre plot. You want to be able to help people think about where to place the house, how to organize the house, where things go, how things are laid out, so that if the house is here, there can be that same kind of structure where this is very formal, this is maybe informal, and then you're just going to let this area grow wild. But at the same time, if you're in a kitchen window, maybe say over here, and you want something to look at, you might organize these hedges and stuff so that something really pretty is out that way. And so there's these axes and there's these points where you're seeing something and they draw you out and they create interest. Same thing here. You might have something that's, it could be a big tree. It could be a bench that sits underneath that tree that's organized, that's laid out. If you think about the Pennsylvania farmhouse, right? When you drive up, part of the story and the magic of that place was the kind of pavement we put down there on the thing. We purposely chose blacktop over concrete because we didn't want it to be too city-ish, right? And so we could have gone with a gravel, or we could have gone with something like that, so you're going back in time. But that little water house, right, where the tank is and where different outbuildings outbuildings are part of that story. And there's going to be a bee house that we're going to build later on that is also part of that organization and how things are put together and where things are visual. And there's a story there, right? So we put that plank door on that house and we did the stonework very carefully so that it had a very specific place and time. Some of these follies in England and Europe, that what they did were actually built ruins, right? That they were making it look like a castle from the 11th century had actually been on, they built a ruin, right? And so it's kind of crazy the way they would think. They were storytelling, they were doing narratives, and there are ways to think about, ways to organize your plot as you're putting it together so that it's more beautiful. And that's really the point, guys. You can too, if you're building out in the country and you want to build a kind of a country house, then there's ways to organize the property so that it communicates and tells that same story. We're doing this same kind of thing when we're doing those ranch projects, because in the ranch you really want to create a sense of space. It helps with scale. If you see a building off in the distance, it helps you go, okay, so yeah, there is something down there, and you can relate to that piece, and it helps you kind of put that thing together. So realize too that sometimes it just provides kind of these boundary points. And if you think about the 1928 Staub house, on the corners in the front of that house are these two big brick piers, right? What are those doing? They're kind of defining the property, but they help you get a sense of where the landscape is and how it's all put together. And those things might look like lonely sentries out there, but they actually help ground that house and help you understand kind of the size of the property, how it's put together, help you put a place and a time to everything. So you guys have been to Winter Tour, there's tons of follies on that property. If you guys have been to Colonial Williamsburg, the way those fences are organized, the way those outbuildings are organized, the hierarchy of buildings, right? All of those things are contributing to the structure of the land, and it's not just about the house, it should be about kind of the whole property. I'm reading a bunch of books because I was so inspired on this trip. I'm going to try to share that information with you, but realize it doesn't just stop with the house. I want you guys to be infusing your ideas into the architecture, into the hardscaping, the kind of materials you use, how it's put together, because it really does make a big difference. I'm Brent Hull, thanks for watching.